Hello and welcome. My name is Chris Loetz from the Compact Systemhaus GmbH, Germany.
Hello, my name is Florian Pirchner. I'm CEO of Lunifera GmbH, located in the near of Vienna.
Let me first give you an introduction to the Open Standard Business Platform, which I will abbreviate with OS.bee. The OS.bee is a collaboration of a community developing software and standards to develop business applications. We have different paradigms under which we're doing this. The first one is the public availability of everything which we are doing. The second one, we're doing this in a collaborative process so that the results that we are presenting will fit and match to the needs of all the ones participating. The next one is that we are using standards as long as they are already existing on the market. Using standard is better than developing its own standards, at least it's a lot cheaper. The next one is we are collaborating with universities and therefore having a scientific approach. And an important one is also using processes and defining processes to develop software, as we think it's synonymy between developing software and having a certain result at the end of this process. And what do we understand under business applications? For us, business application is any type of software you can use under business conditions.
Hello, in the next few minutes I'd like to introduce you about our technology stack, about all the technical aspects involved in the OS.bee. The OS.bee contains of different high-end open source projects licensed under the Eclipse public license, the Apache license, and the Loetz GPL license. The main idea is to combine all of them to something called a technology stack. Yeah? All the features you need to use to write your business applications are contained there. In some, all that features will be some kind of a software factory. You do not have to write Java code anymore. We are providing different approaches, I'll talk about it on the next slide, how to create your application. The main idea behind it is using DSL, domain-specific languages, based on semantic models and generators for it. Well, a business application consists of different domains, and every domain has its own semantics. Everybody who has ever been writing GPA entities for a big project knows you have to code a lot Java code to get really good working entities. You need to use different annotations. You have to use really good patterns to make lazy loading entities and so on. So what if we could extract the semantics behind that idea, the semantic model, and providing a domain-specific language on top of it? You do not have to write 500 lines of code. No, it's enough to write about 25 lines of code and let your computer do the coding work for you. The computer will generate all the Java code, all the XML files required from free. You just have to use very comfortable domain-specific languages. This aspect we are calling the assembly, the generator. And the generator will provide you with a full functional application at the end. So before I'm going into deeper details, I'd like to talk about Eclipse. We choose to use the Eclipse platform as our default application. In general, you can say Eclipse is divided into two different parts. It consists of the Eclipse platform. Eclipse platform was maintained a long time only by IBM employees. Now things changed, and you can extend your Eclipse platform by so-called plugins. The whole Eclipse platform is based on an OSGI runtime. It's called the Equinox runtime. And on the left side of the slides, you can see two very common plugins. It's the JDT, the Java Development Tools. They allow you to code Java in your Eclipse IDE, and the plugin development tools. Indeed, the JDT tools are very, very near to the Eclipse platform, but I think it's a good example. And the whole composition of Eclipse platform and plugins is called your Eclipse IDE. So in the OS.bee, we have two different use cases. We have an IDE. Each developer needs to use an IDE to write down the models, to use the domain-specific languages based on Xtext. And on the other hand, we have a runtime. The runtime, just think about a JBoss web server. That's comparable with the runtime. And we also have common parts. Common parts means a parts that are needed for the IDE and also needed for the runtime. So we have things for tools for development time and a server for the runtime. The runtime is based on OSGI. I'll talk about why we are using OSGI a few slides later. We are using Equinox, and the main difference to default web server is we do not put our application into a web server. No, we put the web server into our application. It's the Jetty web server, and it's just a plugin. It's just a bundle. We're talking about bundles later. It's just a plugin in the OSGI runtime. And now a really interesting thing, we are using the Eclipse E4 kernel in the runtime. Many of you may think, okay, Eclipse is an IDE. Yeah, Eclipse may be an IDE, but Eclipse may also be used in runtime. We are putting the so-called Waclipse project on top of it. Waclipse project is a project that implements Eclipse E4 kernel renderers for runtime. You could say you have an Eclipse based on Vaadin, the whole workbench UI and the views, the editors and so on are supported there. And for sure we had to put in some very special OS.bee features. For business applications we need database access, we need OLAP databases, we need authentication based on Shiro. We need a UI, we need a web UI, and for us we are talking about UI models. We are integrating EMF models and rendering them at runtime, and we need DSL engines. It may be strange that we use domain-specific language engines in the runtime. Yeah, we have a model-driven approach, and we'd like to access the metadata, the semantics about a GPA entity at runtime for sure, based on the information how an entity look like. For instance, a supplier entity, we can generate or render UI, Vaadin UIs on the fly, and there are a lot more features in there. The next part is the IDE part. The IDE part is your Eclipse application, and we put in a lot of additional features. We put on all in all the features required to get a good feeling, a good preview about the application that you are creating, that you are disassembling at this time. There is a Jetty web server for Vaadin preview. We have a Vaadin integrated to render the models at IDE level. We have several Xtext DSLs. Mr. Loetz will talk about it later. And for sure an additional IDE features like an Xtext, index, view, and so on and so on. So we are pretty good set up with our OS.bee IDE. So I often get asked, why are we using OSGI? Why don't we use, for instance, a JBoss application server? And I often get asked, what is it? What is that OSGI in detail? So It takes a few sentences to explain what is OSGI, but it's much simpler to explain what OSGI is not. OSGI is not a monolithic system. OSGI is much more like a neuronal network. Here you can see a neuronal network on the slide. You can think about each neuron is a bundle. Yeah, it's a module. It's a closed system, and each bundle can define dependencies to other bundles. Therefore, we can use well-defined dependency management, or we can use dependency injection by OSGI, by so-called OSGI services. So we do not prepare monolithic systems anymore. No, we have a lot of bundles, and we know which bundle requires other bundles. And we can assemble different systems based on the amount of our bundles very easily. So you can call OSGI also the Lego paradigm. To give you an idea how we are using OSGI and what modularity, what flexibility means, I give you a simple example. On the left side you can see a module, it's a bundle, it's a DSL engines module. You can use this bundle to get informations about a GPA entity, for instance, about the semantic model about the GPA entity. This bundle provides a service. And on the other hand, we have a UI rendering module. This module likes to get information about the semantic information of the GPA entity, and it may consume the provided service. The provided service will automatically be injected into the UI rendering module. And there are a few really great core features in OSGI. Imagine you have your DSL engine module in two different versions. We have the version N and we have the version N+1. And now there is our UI rendering module, and it likes to get an instance about the service provided by version N or version N+1. The OSGI service registry is responsible for tidying the services together. Here in that special version you can see that the UI rendering module is using an older version. Older stuff can be configured in a so-called manifest, in the bundle manifest. If you're talking about life cycles, for normal you have to restart your application server if you would like to change anything in it, any logic. In OSGI it's really great. Here we can see the same example as before. We have a DSL engine module version N, and it is consumed, its service is consumed by the UI rendering module. Active means green. Now we are going to stop the bundle in version N. So the UI, the provided DSL engine service will be removed from the UI rendering module, but OSGI will ensure that you will immediately become injected the version N+1. So the UI rendering module can work properly for every request. There is no need for downtime in any of the cases.
So the question is, with all this functionality, what did we do with it, and what is available as in the sense of a business building platform? And I will give you an example with what we have for the moment. So our platform, first of all, consists of something or a DSL with which you can model an object entity model, because everything starts with something. So if you want to apply functionality on something in your business application, you have to describe that something, and this something is described with an object entity model. This object entity model then later on will be used to describe the database instance that you're going to use. Next one. From there on, we will link this with the authorization. Once you have modeled your authorization you would like to have in your business application, this also will be exported to the appropriate system handling it in your runtime environment. Next one. And using the data out of the database system, normally you're not using all the data at once. You need to specialize and to use just a distinct number of data or attributes. This is done via using the data interface DSL, or to exchange data with external systems. The same if you are using as a database a OLAP or other system, you can describe cubes with which you want to work in your business application. Those cubes can then be specialized in so-called data marts on which you can then apply later on functionality. The same with the data transfer object or the DTO, which is also a distinct number of attributes coming from your database. And this, for example, can be headed on to the UI elements or the DSL describing UI, in our case, Vadin. Well, of course, we need functionality. So you have to describe your functions, which you put together to something which we call business logic. And those can be exported and used internally or externally via web services. Well, those all are DSLs or models which are described and not seen by the user interface or as a user experience. But they're the ones you can see on the UI. For example, you will be able to describe an organigram and to visualize it, and at the same time using the organigram describing your authorizations and authentications. Then you will be able, or you are able, to describe the dialogues, to describe tables in your dialogues, to describe charts, so graphical elements, to describe topology, or for example, geographical elements, reports, and we also have a calendar functionality and visualization, and workflow elements described in BPNM. Well, all these together are then put together in so-called perspectives, and perspectives are put together to the application that the user is seeing on his end device. And the same thing is done for mobile devices, so that when you are modeling an application, you can use it as well on a PC or in a browser, as well as on any other device, for example, mobile devices. So the question is, how does it look like when you look at it in a live presentation? So we will give you a first impression, and then we will see what is the advantage of using OS.bee, because our main goal is to build faster and more secure than others business application. And we'll give you a short example. Here we have what you can read. We have an entity supplier, and the only thing you will see now on the screen, we will start our our web browser and show it to you. So we have a supplier, and you see on the left hand the supplier in form of a table, just showing company 1 through company N. And as you can see, if you click on the left hand side, on the right hand side, the dialog, you will see the company name, which has been activated in the table, and its ID, and the same thing at the bottom right as in form of a report. And of course, if you type something into the company field, this is saved and synchronized with the table on the left hand side. So what is needed to do a small application like this, and what is needed to change this application, and how fast can this be done? So let's look into the DSL model. Well, first of all, we have to describe our entity object model, which is a quite simple one. For here, we have our supplier and the company we have just seen a couple of seconds ago. And to continue with what we're doing, we are going to do the following. We're going to add certain information to the entity object model. Let's go back to the PowerPoint, please. Yeah. Okay, no problem. That's okay. So we're going to do the following. We're going to change our object entity model, adding new information attributes to our model, and we will forward this information through those different models. We will add the information to the data transfer object, to the UI elements, add them to the dialog, to the table, to the report, and at the end to the perspective and application that we're going to see. And well, normally, if you work with other business application tools, you will have to do this in every single layer, repeating the same work all the time. And we will do this in our master DSL on the left-hand side in the object entity model, doing it once, repeating it through the different layers using rules that we have implemented. And we will see that the application will be developed in a couple of seconds. Okay, let's go back to the development environment. So we added the attributes we wanted to add. So we have the city, we have the zip code, we have the street name, house number, etc. I mean, you can imagine yourself what you would like to have when you want to handle a supplier. We will now start the runtime again, and this information is now headed forward to the different DSLs. We will start our browser, restart it, and like from magic, you will see all this information now available in all layers and the end user application. That's it. That's all we need to build an application. So the question is, what happened in the background? What is OS.bee doing with all what we explained just a couple seconds ago? So let's go back to the Eclipse environment. So the first thing, of course, we changed our entity object model, as I just said. The second one, the information was forwarded to the data marts, so that this information is not only extracted from the database, but also made available for the next layer. Then this is forwarded to the grid. Oh, no, to the grid, yes. And here you can, yes. Let's go ahead. It's fine. So then the information is headed on to the report, so that on the bottom right you can see the report taking up their information. It's forwarded to the data mart. Yeah, to the next one, etc., etc. Just by adding it in the entity describing model. That's it. So developing business application has become really easy and really fast. And the nice thing about it, it's really sure, because you can't do anything wrong. You add those couple of lines and everything else is done by the OS.bee platform. Any comments so far on your side?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's fine for you. It's also fine for me. So thank you very much for watching. And now we will ask you to ask us some questions if you have any. So if there are no questions, we would like to ask you if you would like to join the club and help us to develop this application platform. If you are yourself a business application developer, I think it might be interesting for you to facilitate your daily work using this model and the OS.bee platform. Just can we have the PowerPoint, please? Good. So you can mail to us with OS.bee at compex-commerce.com, and or you can have a look at www.compex-commerce.com and /en and inform yourself in more detail, as we have shown to you today, and we'll be glad to welcome you in our team. So far, thank you very much. My name is Chris Loetz, responsible at the Compex company for this project, together with Frank Stuber and Jörg Riegel. And
thanks a lot. My name is Florian Pirchner from Uniferus GmbH in the near of Vienna, Austria. Thanks.